Stomach, Wikipedia audio. The stomach is a muscular, hollow organ in the gastrointestinal tract of humans and many other animals, including several invertebrates. The stomach has a dilated structure and functions as a vital digestive organ. In the digestive system, the stomach is involved in the second phase of digestion, following mastication. In humans and many other animals, the stomach is located between the esophagus and the small intestine. It secretes digestive enzymes and gastric acid to aid in food digestion. The pyloric sphincter controls the passage of partially digested food from the stomach into the duodenum, where peristalsis takes over to move this through the rest of the intestines. In humans, the stomach lies between the esophagus and the duodenum. It is in the left upper part of the abdominal cavity. The top of the stomach lies against the diaphragm. Lying behind the stomach is the pancreas. A large double fold of visceral peritoneum called the greater omentum hangs down from the greater curvature of the stomach. Two sphincters keep the contents of the stomach contained: the lower esophageal sphincter, at the junction of the esophagus and stomach, and the pyloric sphincter at the junction of the stomach with the duodenum. Structure. The stomach is surrounded by parasympathetic and sympathetic plexuses, which regulate both the secretory activity of the stomach and the motor activity of its muscles. In adult humans, the stomach has a relaxed, near-empty volume of about 75 milliliters. Because it is a digestible organ, it normally expands to hold about 1 liter of food. The stomach of a newborn human baby will only be able to retain about 30 milliliters. The cardia is where the contents of the esophagus empty into the stomach. The cardia is defined as the region following the Z-line of the gastroesophageal junction, the point at which the epithelium changes from stratified squamous to columnar. Near the cardia is the lower esophageal sphincter. The fundus is formed by the upper curvature of the organ. The body is the main, central region. The pylorus is the lower section of the organ that facilitates emptying the contents into the small intestine. In classical anatomy, the human stomach is divided into 4 sections, beginning at the gastric cardia, each of which has different cells and functions. The lesser curvature of the human stomach is supplied by the right gastric artery inferiorly, and the left gastric artery superiorly, which also supplies the cardiac region. The greater curvature is supplied by the right gastroepiploic artery inferiorly and the left gastroepiploic artery superiorly. The fundus of the stomach, and also the upper portion of the greater curvature, is supplied by the short gastric artery, which arises from the splenic artery. Like the other parts of the gastrointestinal tract, the human stomach walls consist of an outer mucosa, inner submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa. The gastric mucosa of the stomach consists of the epithelium and the lamina propria, with a thin layer of smooth muscle called the muscularis mucosae separating it from the submucosa beneath. The submucosa lies under the mucosa and consists of fibrous connective tissue, separating the mucosa from the next layer. Meissner's plexus is in this layer. The muscularis externa lies beneath the submucosa and is unique from other organs of the gastrointestinal tract, consisting of 3 layers. The stomach also possesses a serosa, consisting of layers of connective tissue continuous with the peritoneum. The inner oblique layer, this layer is responsible for creating the motion that churns and physically breaks down the food. It is the only layer of the 3 which is not seen in other parts of the digestive system. The antrum has thicker skin cells in its walls and performs more forceful contractions than the fundus, the middle circular layer, At this layer, the pylorus is surrounded by a thick circular muscular wall which is normally tonically constricted, forming a functional pyloric sphincter, which controls the movement of chyme into the duodenum. This layer is concentric to the longitudinal axis of the stomach. Auerbach's plexus is found between the outer longitudinal and the middle circular layer and is responsible for the innervation of both. The outer longitudinal layer is responsible for moving the bolus towards the pylorus of the stomach through muscular shortening. In humans, different types of cells are found at the different layers of the gastric glands. Human cardiac glands. Water. If the body is dehydrated, medication, like aspirin, amino acids, 10–20% of ingested ethanol, caffeine, to a small extent water-soluble vitamins. Sections. Human pyloric glands. Human fundic glands. In early human embryogenesis, the ventral part of the embryo abuts the yolk sac. During the second week of development, as the embryo grows, it begins to surround parts of the sac. The enveloped portions form the basis for the adult gastrointestinal tract. The sac is surrounded by a network of vitelline arteries. Over time, these arteries consolidate into the three main arteries that supply the developing gastrointestinal tract: the celiac artery, superior mesenteric artery, and inferior mesenteric artery. The areas supplied by these arteries are used to define the midgut, hindgut, and foregut. The surrounded sac becomes the primitive gut. Sections of this gut begin to differentiate into the organs of the gastrointestinal tract, and the esophagus, and stomach form from the foregut. In the human digestive system, a bolus enters the stomach through the esophagus via the lower esophageal sphincter. The stomach releases proteases and hydrochloric acid, which kills or inhibits bacteria and provides the acidic pH of 2 for the proteases to work. Food is churned by the stomach through muscular contractions of the wall called peristalsis, reducing the volume of the fundus, before looping around the fundus and the body of stomach as the boluses are converted into chyme. Chyme slowly passes through the pyloric sphincter and into the duodenum of the small intestine, where the extraction of nutrients begins. Depending on the quantity and contents of the meal, the stomach will digest the food into chyme within anywhere between 40 minutes and a few hours. The average human stomach can comfortably hold about a liter of food. Gastric juice in the stomach also contains pepsin. Hydrochloric acid activates this inactive form of enzyme into the active form, pepsin. Pepsin breaks down proteins into polypeptides. Although the absorption in the human digestive system is mainly a function of the small intestine, some absorption of certain small molecules nevertheless does occur in the stomach through its lining. This includes: the parietal cells of the human stomach are responsible for producing intrinsic factor, which is necessary for the absorption of vitamin B12. B12 is used in cellular metabolism and is necessary for the production of red blood cells, and the functioning of the nervous system. Blood supply. Histology. The movement and the flow of chemicals into the stomach are controlled by both the autonomic nervous system and by the various digestive hormones of the digestive system. Gastric glands. Development. Function. Digestion. Absorption. Other than gastrin, these hormones all act to turn off the stomach action. This is in response to food products in the liver and gall bladder, which have not yet been absorbed. The stomach needs to push food into the small intestine only when the intestine is not busy. While the intestine is full and still digesting food, the stomach acts as storage for food. Epidermal growth factor results in cellular proliferation, differentiation, and survival. EGF is a low molecular weight polypeptide first purified from the mouse submandibular gland, but since then found in many human tissues including the submandibular gland and the parotid gland. Salivary EGF, which seems also regulated by dietary inorganic iodine, plays also an important physiological role in the maintenance of oroesophageal and gastric tissue integrity. The biological effects of salivary EGF include healing of oral and gastroesophageal ulcers, inhibition of gastric acid secretion, stimulation of DNA synthesis, and mucosal protection from intraluminal injurious factors such as gastric acid, bile acids, pepsin, and trypsin, and from physical, chemical, and bacterial agents. The human stomach can taste sodium glutamate using glutamate receptors, and this information is passed to the lateral hypothalamus and limbic system in the brain as a palatability signal through the vagus nerve. The stomach can also sense, independently of tongue and oral taste receptors, glucose, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. This allows the brain to link nutritional value of foods to their tastes. Control of secretion and motility. About 20,000 protein-coding genes are expressed in human cells, and nearly 70% of these genes are expressed in the normal stomach. Just over 150 of these genes are more specifically expressed in the stomach compared to other organs, with only some 20 genes being highly specific. The corresponding specific proteins expressed in stomach are mainly involved in creating a suitable environment for handling the digestion of food for uptake of nutrients. Highly stomach-specific proteins include GKN1, expressed in the mucosa, pepsin-OGen PGC and the lipase LIPF, expressed in chief cells, and gastric ADPase ATP4A and gastric intrinsic factor GIF, expressed in parietal cells. A series of radiographs can be used to examine the stomach for various disorders. This will often include the use of a swallow barium. Another method of examination of the stomach is the use of an endoscope. A gastric emptying scan is considered the gold standard to assess gastric emptying rate. A large number of studies have indicated that most cases of peptic ulcers and gastritis in humans are caused by Helicobacter pylori infection, and an association has been seen with the development of stomach cancer. A stomach rumble is actually noise from the intestines. The stomach has to regenerate a new layer of mucus every 2 weeks, or else damage to the epithelium may result. In humans, many bariatric surgery procedures involve the stomach, in order to lose weight. A gastric band may be placed around the cardia area, which can adjust to limit intake. The anatomy of the stomach may be modified, or the stomach may be bypassed entirely. Surgical removal of the stomach is called a gastrectomy, and removal of the cardia area is called a cardiectomy. Cardiectomy is a term that is also used to describe the removal of the heart. A gastrectomy may be carried out because of gastric cancer or severe perforation of the stomach wall. There were previously conflicting statements in the academic anatomy community over whether the cardia is part of the stomach, part of the esophagus, or a distinct entity. Modern surgical and medical textbooks have agreed that the gastric cardia is now clearly considered to be part of the stomach. Stomach acid. The word stomach is derived from the Latin stomachus, which is derived from the Greek word stomachos, ultimately from stoma, mouth. The words gastro and gastric are both derived from the Greek word gaster. Although the precise shape and size of the stomach varies widely among different vertebrates, the relative positions of the esophageal and duodenal openings remain relatively constant. As a result, the organ always curves somewhat to the left before curving back to meet the pyloric sphincter. However, lampreys, hagfishes, chimeras, lungfishes, and some teleost have no stomach at all, with the esophagus opening directly into the anus. These animals all consume diets that either require little storage of food, or no predigestion with gastric juices, or both. Stomach as nutrition sensor. The gastric lining is usually divided into two regions, an anterior portion lined by fundic glands, and a posterior with pyloric glands. Cardiac glands are unique to mammals, and even then are absent in a number of species. The distributions of these glands vary between species, and do not always correspond with the same regions as in humans. Furthermore, in many non-human mammals, a portion of the stomach anterior to the cardiac glands is lined with epithelium essentially identical to that of the esophagus. Ruminants, in particular, have a complex stomach, the first three chambers of which are all lined with esophageal mucosa. In birds and crocodilians, the stomach is divided into two regions. Anteriorly is a narrow tubular region, the preventriculus, lined by fundic glands, and connecting the true stomach to the crop. Beyond lies the powerful muscular gizzard, lined by pyloric glands, and, in some species, containing stones that the animal swallows to help grind up food. Gene and protein expression. Clinical significance. Diseases. In insects there is also a crop. The insect's stomach is called the midgut. Information about the stomach in echinoderms or mollusks can be found under the respective articles. Greater omentum and stomach of humans. Human stomach. A more realistic image, showing the celiac artery and its branches in humans, the liver has been raised, and the lesser omentum and anterior layer of the greater omentum removed. An autopsy of a human stomach. 2012 Instituto Nacional de Cardiologia. Human stomach. The gastrointestinal wall of the human stomach. Endoscopic image of human fundic gland polyposis. Surgery. History. Etymology. Other animals.